Hello, thank you for joining me for the launch of Doors Closing, which is my fourth book, and it's now available, yay, on Amazon, and that's in download or paperback, so you can get it there now. Just to let you know, 50 pence from every book I sell will be donated to a wildlife charity, but I'll let you know a little bit more about that later. I'll also be giving you a chance to win a book and some chocolate together, so I'll give you the details for that later as well. Right, you might have read some of my other books, the Nut Shop books, which you'll know were based on my experiences of running a health food shop in Gosforth, and I loved writing those books and they were really well received, but I just wanted to do something a little bit different. I'm really fascinated by characters, all of us, how we bounce off each other and how we're different. We're all slightly different versions of ourselves depending on what we're doing and who we're with. So I just wanted a chance to explore and develop some of my own characters. So the characters in the Nut Shop were brilliant to write, but they were very, they were based on real people, so I had to keep within those boundaries. Whereas if I was to write my own characters, I could do whatever I want. So I wanted to have a go at doing that. So while I was looking around for some ideas to start a novel, I have found a short story I'd written actually on a flight to Japan to amuse myself, and I decided to edit it and tweak it a bit and use that as the first chapter of my new book. So at the end of this story, there's a character who goes off to make a new beginning, and I thought I'll take that character on and find out what their story is, and I continued like that until I had 10 characters, very different characters, and what I wanted to do was tell a story from all their different viewpoints. So each character has a voice which is quite different and sees things from a different perspective, and by the end of the novel everything comes together. They all have their own issues and problems, and by the end of the novel they've all become entwined with each other and everything is resolved. So I've got all my little cards here and I'm forgetting what I'm supposed to be saying. Like I say, the giveaway is the book and the chocolates. All you have to do is like my author page, share this video and tag in a couple of friends who you might think would be interested in the book. You can do that as many times as you like. Please don't put any personal details on or anything like that, just the names. And then what I'll do is I'm going to give it a week and then I'll choose a winner at random and I'll get in touch with them and forward the book and the chocolates to them. So I've got some questions here that people have sent into me. The first one is, what did I choose for the setting of the book and why? Well, of course, the book's set in the northeast because I'm a northeast girl and I love Newcastle and our coastline. So some of the action takes place in Newcastle. One of the settings is an office in Jesmond where some of the characters work, but a lot of it takes place along the coast. I have a character who lives in Tynemouth, and some of the action happens in Whitley Bay and in Cullercoats. Another question, which character did you enjoy writing most and why? Well, that would have to be Evelyn. Evelyn has a lot of issues and difficulties, but she has her own strategies of how to cope with them, and she overcomes a lot of difficulties, and I just like her strength and I like the way she deals with things. So I suppose if all the characters were to come alive, Evelyn would be the person I'd most like to be friends with. I'll read a little bit of Evelyn just to give you an idea of what Evelyn's like. This is where Evelyn's working in the office and she goes through to take some documents to her boss, and he wants her to do a favour for him, and she's not really very happy about it. No, not that kind of favour. Okay. At 4:30, such is the custom, I take the pile of documents into Mr. Edwards' office for him to check and sign. 37 today, Mr. Edwards, I tell him as I hand over the sheaf of papers. He looks up and smiles. Ah, Evelyn, he says, I have a favour to ask. I'm bringing my nephew along this evening and I wondered if you'd look after him for me. My heart beats rapidly and I feel a surge of anxiety. He's just moved home from uni. He's a lovely lad, just a bit shy. A picture jumps to mind. A tall, good-looking man, the type with well-tailored clothes, perfect teeth and cropped hair. He'll be intelligent and worldly wise. I'm not the sort of person he'll want to be introduced to. Then another thought strikes. What if he's one of those rebellious types of students? The man in my vision sprouts piercings and tattoos. I see myself, cornered, listening to him enthuse about veganism or some awful anti-establishment rock band. Do you think maybe Mina or perhaps one of the other girls might be a more suitable companion? I stutter. Mr. Edwards smiles. He has always treated me considerately, like a kindly uncle. I don't want to let him down. Evelyn, you underestimate yourself. You are a lovely girl. I'm sure you and Robert will get on like a house on fire. A house on fire is an occurrence of uncontrollable destruction. It does not bode well. Mr. Edwards adds his signature to several of the sheets and collects the pages together. Looking up, he smiles and holds them out to me. We'll pick you up at 7. I'm wearing my old familiar blue dress and my memory foam sandals. I feel that comfort is important tonight. My hair is freshly washed and has fluffed up about my ears from my attempt at blow drying. I made an effort and bought a lipstick at the chemist on the way home. It makes my mouth stand out against my pale skin like blood in the snow. Perhaps it's because I'm not used to it. I practice speaking, watching my scarlet lips move in the mirror, trying to decide if it looks better if I exaggerate their movement or try to lessen it. I find it quite fascinating and watch my reflection until I hear a car pull up, a sense of doom arriving with it. Taking a deep breath, I check my handbag, say goodbye house and lock the door behind me. Mr. Edwards gets out of the car and opens the passenger door. Ah, Evelyn, looking lovely as always, he says as I climb in. Meet my nephew, Robert. I say hello, aware of the stranger sitting in the back of the car, but unable to bring myself to look. A mumbled hello comes back to me and I sense his disappointment. Mr. Edwards chats pleasantly as we head to the Tanner's Arms. My mouth is too dry to speak and there's silence from the back seat, but Mr. Edwards doesn't seem to notice. He tells us there will be a disco, a buffet and a grand raffle. I'm nervous, so I count lampposts, but only those that are fully lit, not those still glowing yellow. The pub is festooned with coloured lights and the air is filled with muffled voices and music. Mr. Edwards escorts me from the car and I turn to take a look at Robert, who is climbing out of the back. He is not at all what I expected. He has sandy hair that needs a trim and a rather red face. His jacket gapes at the buttons and he pulls at it. We walk past a huddle of smokers to the entrance. I'm sure you'll both have a lovely evening, Mr. Edward tells us, and Robert pulls at his jacket again and nods. Inside smells like beer and people and fried food. There is loud music and flashing lights, and I am glad when Mr. Edwards pulls out a chair for me. I sink into it gratefully. What can I get you, he asks. I hesitate. Wine, beer, cider? Or perhaps you'd like a fruit gin? Isn't that what you ladies drink nowadays? Oh, he means a drink. Could I have a Coke, please? Robert? Same for me, please, Coke. Sure you don't want a beer, Mr. Edward asks. I drank beer once and it made me feel quite peculiar, Robert says. I like the precise way he pronounces his words. Mr. Edwards moves towards the bar, leaving us together. I look around the room and see a large group of girls dancing around a pile of handbags. There are 14 girls, but I only count 12 handbags. From the corner of my eye, I see Robert tugging at his jacket. He clears his throat. I turn to listen, but he looks away and doesn't speak. I wonder what someone like Mina would do in this situation. I take the lipstick from my handbag, remove the lid, and then remember I don't have a mirror, so push it back into my bag. I realise I have replaced it into the wrong pocket, so fish it out and put it in the correct one. It unsettles me that I should have made such an error, but I comfort myself with the fact that it's because of the unusual situation. I remember my task and I attempt to initiate a conversation. My mind is blank. There is silence as Robert and I carefully avoid eye contact. Pigs are much larger than I expected them to be, I blurt out at last. I cringe at my own words as blood rushes to my face. Robert looks up and our eyes meet for a second before I look away. I saw a programme last night, I babble, about the intelligence of pigs. I thought they were fairly small mammals, maybe it's about the size of a dog, but they're not. I look down at the carpet. Oh, yes, Robert says. I saw that too. Did you see the part where he gave the pigs simple puzzles to solve? His face looks different as he speaks, less sullen, more animated. He smiles and I feel a fleeting collection. I'm going to leave it there so you don't know how their relationship develops unless you read it. So, some more questions. Let's have a look. So, which book are you most proud of and why? And would you change anything? I'm probably always proudest of the book I've just written because it's current. And when you write about your characters, you really get to know them and you're having this dialogue with them all the time. So when you finish writing, I quite miss them. I quite miss the characters. As for changing anything, I think if I went back to the first book or books I wrote, I probably would change things or write them differently. I think when you write, how you're feeling mentally and emotionally and outside influences what's going on in the world. I think all of that affects your writing and how you describe things and how you put things down. So if I were to write those stories again, I probably would write them differently. But that's not to say I think it would be a good idea to go back and change them. I think once they're done, for me, they're done and I'd like to move on. Because, you can get into this thing, which I have done before, where you edit and change and add something and take something away and edit and re-edit. And I think you just have to come to a point where you say, no, that's finished. Possibly like a painting. I don't know, I'm not an artist in that way, but maybe when you're painting, you could go on adding and there has to be a point where you decide this is the finished thing and let it go. And I've always got so many ideas buzzing around. I don't really want to go back and redo something. I'm always wanting to move on to the next thing. Okay. Who was the most challenging character to write? The most challenging character would have to be Baz. And that's because he's probably the most different to me of all the characters I've written. Baz has a most different character to me. He's a big Geordie bloke. He's a gardener. He constructs paths and parks. He likes football and beer and going out with the lads. So I had to really try and get into his mind and write in the way that I thought he would speak and think. So I'll read you a little bit of Baz. There's a bit in here where, yes, he goes to an anger management class, which he doesn't really want to go to, but he wants to be with Mina, and Mina wants him to sort out his anger issues, so he hasn't really got a choice. So here we go. This is Baz. Excuse me. This is Baz at the anger management class. I feel like a right tit sitting here. There's 6 of us, as well as the coordinator. Call me Pip. All sitting in a circle in a church hall. I'm trying to check them all out, while at the same time avoiding eye contact, especially with the bloke sitting directly opposite. He must be at least 7 feet tall when he's standing. He's a great bulk of tattooed muscle. His neck's as wide as his massive head. His jaw's thick set like he could chew up bricks. He's dwarfing the chair he's sitting in, and he's casting a shadow into the middle of the circle. His shadow's almost as menacing as he is. He looks like the type of bloke who would kill you if you spilt his pint. I can't quite see the girl sitting to my right, but I can hear the constant snap of her bubble gum, interspersed with irritated sighs, and I can see her trainer bobbing up and down as she taps her foot. I know how she feels. I don't want to be here either. Next to her is a man dressed in black with a jutting chin and a permanent scowl, looking like someone from a gangster film. He'd be the aloof one, the brains of the outfit. You know, the really evil one who thinks up horrible plans and gets the others to carry them out. Then there's a cool-looking guy with dreads who looks like he'd be fun to go to the pub with, and a mouse of a woman who doesn't look like she's got it in her to even get mildly peeved, never mind angry. Call Me Pip is wearing a dress like a granny would put on for Christmas dinner and a pair of green docks. She's wittering on, telling us the rules of the group, basically. No taking the piss, and what happens in Angry Club stays in Angry Club. She then begins telling us the difference between anger and aggression, and it's dead boring. But I don't really mind because she's nice to look at. She's got a round face with big blue eyes, and I quite fancy her. But I know she's one of those intellectual types who would cut us down with a clever quip. Anyway, I'm giving up chasing after girls. It's Mina I want. They say you never know what you have until it's gone, but it took me a while to realise about Mina. At first I had a great time in France. There were loads of girls just the same as me, wanting a good time with no strings attached. But after a while, it all seemed a bit meaningless. Hitting on some lass in a club, making small talk and pretending we were interested in each other's lives, when there was only really one thing we were both interested in, and then afterwards the awkward exchanging of numbers, when neither of us had any intention of meeting up again. When I met Mina back at home in Newcastle, I fell for her straight away. I'd never felt so comfortable with a lass before. We could talk about things and have a real laugh together. It was like being with a really fit lass and one of your best mates at the same time. After we split up, I kept thinking about what it would be like to settle down with her, get a house and stuff. She kept coming back into my head, and I started to realise just what I'd let go. Maybe I'm getting old or something, but I seem to want more than just a quick night of fun now. Me and Mina weren't just about sex. I mean, yeah, that bit was great, but there were other things too. Barry, Pip says, and I realise her introductory speech is finished. She smiles encouragingly. No one calls us Barry, not even me mam. I look around the circle. Everyone's watching and waiting except Mouse, who's staring at the floor. You're Barry, Pip prompts. Baz. And you're here, Pip urges. I am. You're here because... Oh, right, sorry, yeah, I'm here because I get angry. I'm sure I see dreadlocks hide a snigger, so when it's his turn, I prepare to do the same to him. But when he tells us that his name is Leon, and he's angry about the inequalities in society and the oppression of minority groups, it just sounds dead clever. Once we've all suffered this first humiliation, Pip asks us to describe our anger. I want you to think about how it feels. Tell us how you react to it, she says earnestly. Baz, let's start with you. Oh, shit. There's a pause and everyone, except Mouse, looks at me expectantly. I'm feeling really hot now and I just want to leave. Baz? Yeah, I just get really angry sometimes. And how do you react to those feelings of anger? Well, I get really angry. Leon smirks and I feel like I've just made the biggest arse of myself. The chewing gum girl goes off into a long explanation about how her anger takes over her. It starts at my feet and it goes up my legs and then it just goes all over my body and then I get dead hot and I just take a wobbler. Pip nods. Thank you for sharing that, Chelsea May, she says, and she turns to the gangster. Mickey? He scowls and refuses to answer. I didn't realise that was an option. I might try it myself next time. When it's Mouse's turn, she keeps her gaze firmly on the floor and mumbles that she doesn't know. The bulk describes how people get on his nerves and they wind him up and they make him lose his shit, especially do-gooder lefties with all their crap, and how he gets so mad he ends up having to punch something. His face gets redder and redder and his voice gets louder and louder, and I involuntarily shrink back into my chair as he looks as though he's about to get up and start hoying chairs about. Pip maintains her expression of sympathetic interest. Thank you for sharing that, Ron, she says, and as he continues to rant, she calmly reminds him of the group rules and tells him now he needs to listen carefully to the rest of the group. I hold my breath waiting for the explosion, but I'm amazed to see that he heeds Pip's words and shuts his purple face. Leon, of course, comes out with an articulate speech worthy of a round of applause, and though he doesn't get one, I can see that Pip is impressed by his words. We spend the next 20 minutes or so practicing breathing exercises, and at last I am free to leave with my anger chart homework. I'm straight on the mobile to the lads. Decca's at the Tanner's Arms when I arrive, sitting at the bar with 3 pints in front of him. Cheers, mate, I say as I pick up a beer and knock it back. Christ, I needed that. Jonesy arrives and pulls up a bar stool. Well, how did it go? I shake my head. Don't even ask, mate. How are you, man? Decca says. I've been waiting all day to hear this. I still can't believe you went. Aye, well, I did, and I don't want to talk about it. Decca and Jonesy make a joint ooh sound, so I just ignore them. Must be love, Decca, Jonesy says, and the two of them start making kissing noises. Hilarious. So that's a bit of Baz for you. Someone has asked, I think it was Pamela, about the elephant charity that I support. I was in India last year, at the end of last year, and I loved it. I loved the culture, the people, the art, the music. The only thing I didn't like was the plight of the elephants there. It really, really disturbed me. We went to the Amber Fort, which is a beautiful place to visit. But unfortunately, elephants were being used to transport tourists up to the hill. We didn't use the elephants. We went up in a jeep. And just looking at these elephants, you could tell it wasn't right. They had torn ears where they had, the metal hooks to control them. You could tell that their feet were so hot rock. It's not the right environment for elephants to be walking on, and they were constantly up the hill and down the hill in the heat of the day. So when I came home, I read up about it, and it's not a good thing. Wild elephants don't obey people unless they've been broken. You can have a look on the internet. There's some awful videos about how baby elephants are broken into, and I don't want to go into it here. But what I did find was this amazing charity called Wildlife SOS. If you want to have a look, if you go online, wildlifesos.org, they do rescue elephants, but also other animals, bears and leopards. There's a lovely video of them rescuing a leopard who had fallen down a well. So what I'm going to do is, from now until Christmas, every copy of Doors Closing I sell, 50p will go to the charity, and that's paperbacks and downloads, makes no difference. So hopefully by Christmas I should have a nice amount. Hopefully, it will depend how many books I sell. I'll have a nice little Christmas present for them. So thank you if you buy a book, because it means you're helping too. Okay, let's have a look at another question. Which author inspires you most? Ooh, there's probably too many to mention. Well, I've got some of my books here. Let's have a look. I've got Daphne du Maurier. I've got Maeve Binchy, Jane Fallon, Joanne Harris. I think if I had to go for one, I would go for Maeve Binchy, because I love the way that she develops her characters. There's a little bit of humour in them as well. And she writes about these people that makes you really interested in their lives, and it really draws you in. And like I say, she always has like a little bit of that Irish humour in, which I love. So if I could write like anyone, I would like, I think, to be able to write characters like Maeve Binchy. Another question here. Doors Closing. Why did I pick that title? Well, the original story was named Doors Closing. It was actually suggested by a friend, Margaret Valentine. Suggested it, and it really fitted the story because it was set on the metro, so the doors closing I don't think they use it now. They went to stand clear of the doors please, and then I think it's changed again, but originally it was somebody shouting doors closing in a Geordie accent, and doors closing sort of symbolises the end of a period in your life when you put things behind you and move on, and that's very much what the book's about. It's about people coming to terms with things that have happened in their life, sorting out problems, putting them behind them, and then new doors open for them, so it's sort of to represent that. I have got a lot more questions, but rather than sit here and ramble on at you, I think what I'll do is I'm going to put them onto this video in the comments. I'll put them in there and answer them. If you have anything else you want to ask, I would love to hear what you're interested in, what you think of the book, if you've read it, or the other books, and if you want to know anything, I'll do my best to answer any questions. In the meantime, I'd love you to get over to Amazon, wherever you are in the world. It should now be loaded up to all the Amazon sites, so you can buy a paperback or download the book. Don't forget to, for the book and the chocolate, all you need to do is like the writers page, share this video, and tag as many friends as you'd like, people who you might think would be interested in the book. What I'll do is I'll get all the names together and I'll pick a name from a hat. Why do we say a hat? It won't be a hat. I'll pick all the names from a pot or an envelope. I don't know why I always say that, we'll pick it from a hat. I doubt it'll be a hat. But I'll pick a name at random, and at 5 o'clock a week today, which will be the 27th of June, I'll post the winner. Please don't put any personal details in the comments, just in case the wrong people see them. Just put a name and I'll get in touch with whoever's won and arrange to send the book and the chocolates to them. I'd love you to have a look at my writers page as well and have a scroll through. There's information about Doors Closing and about my previous books. And if you have read Doors Closing or any of my books, I would love you to write a review and stick it on Amazon or any other local writers. It really helps us. Reviews really help promote our work, so that's great. So thank you very much for dropping in. For anybody who stayed the full length of the video, thank you very much. I'm off to go and have a nice glass of wine. I hope you enjoy the rest of your evening, and hopefully the next book it'll be a good party again. Bye.